Ida for getting the lake house in the divorce, the one where my ex-husband secretly met his lover. My name is Elena. I'm 39 and I've been divorced for a few months. My ex-husband Ben, 40, is an architect. We were together for 10 years, 7 of them married. We met in New York. I work in marketing, and he had just completed his first major project. Ben was open, charming, reliable, or so I thought. His closest circle of friends came from college. He studied architecture at Cornell. Jewel, Rachel, Chris, Liam, Zach, and Noah, his best friend, as he always called him. That group was inseparable. They treated me kindly, but I never truly became part of it. There was a wall of distance between them and me, one I could never overcome because they didn't allow it. Their memories from college belonged to them, and they rarely shared them with me. Now and then, I overheard fragments, when I was in the kitchen arranging snacks and they thought I couldn't hear them. Once a year, the group would spend 3 weeks at an old lake house on Lake Champlain in Vermont, which Ben had inherited from his great aunt. I was never allowed to join. It's just for the college crew. Tradition, Ben always said. I never truly accepted it, but I swallowed it, as the price of loving someone so deeply rooted in his past. Until my sister sent me a screenshot. The photo had been posted on a profile I didn't recognize. It showed Ben and Noah. They were sitting shirtless in the hot tub. Not like two friends, but closely snuggled up to each other. Both were holding a glass of champagne. Noah leaned casually against Ben's shoulder, while Ben smiled directly at the camera. The caption, "Relaxing with my sweetheart." I didn't want to believe it. I tried to tell myself it was harmless, that it was a misunderstanding. I frantically searched for the profile to look at more photos that might offer some context, but I couldn't find it. At first, I thought it was a technical glitch until I realized I was blocked. I called my sister right away, and she confirmed that she could still access it. When I burst into tears, she dropped everything and drove over to my place. Over a bottle of white wine, she scrolled through the comments with me. Rachel, Chris, Jewel, Liam, heart emojis, fireworks. You two are just adorable. Finally relaxing the way you deserve. Love always wins. I felt dizzy. My heart was pounding in my chest. And suddenly I remembered all the excuses and countless evasions I had pushed aside, simply because I didn't want to accept what my intuition had been trying to tell me. The guys' weekends hadn't been harmless, friendly getaways between Ben and Noah. They were romantic. All their friends had helped throw sand in my eyes and keep me on the outside. I saw this one simple, painful truth. I wasn't my husband's sweetheart. I was his cover. My sister wanted me to leave Ben immediately and move in with her, but I needed time to think about my next steps. I loved Ben and wanted to save my marriage. Yes, I held on to the illusion that I could somehow turn things around. My sister just looked at me with pity but said nothing. "I'm here for you if you need someone to talk to," she said as she left. For weeks, I moved through a fog. I did what needed to be done. I went to work, answered emails, ordered food, acted like nothing was wrong around Ben. But inside, my head was a noisy mess. Scenes, conversations, excuses, images I couldn't shake. I tried to come up with a version of reality I could live with, one where I could forgive and save my marriage. But none of those versions felt true. When I finally confronted him, he just looked at me. No denial, no confession, not a word. His silence was the answer. I said, "We're getting divorced." He nodded, almost relieved. "Are you moving out?" he asked quietly. "You'd like that, wouldn't you? An empty nest for your little lover," I said coldly. "This apartment is big enough. You're moving into the guest room." Ben wanted to protest, but my icy look stopped him. Inside, my heart was bleeding as he took his clothes out of the walk-in closet and placed them in the guest room wardrobe. Then came the actual negotiations. Ben had just started a new major project, a residential complex with public funding in Brooklyn. The marketing concept and all external communications were being handled by my agency. Without my involvement, the approval process would be significantly delayed. It was a matter of time and looming penalties, in other words, a lot of money. I let the project slide a bit without sabotaging it directly. It simply dropped on my priority list, and I had solid reasons ready to present to my boss. Ben came under more and more pressure, and during a heated argument, he said to me, "I'll go to your boss and demand a different marketing team." "You're free to do that," I replied, knowing full well that a new team would need time to get up to speed. My contacts were worth gold, and Ben needed them. He stormed out of the apartment and didn't come back that night. Maybe he stayed with Noah. I told myself I didn't care. His lawyer contacted me the next afternoon. "What are your demands, Mrs. E?" The apartment, half of the retirement savings, and the house on Lake Champlain in Vermont, including all furnishings and household items, as emotional compensation. That will make my client furious. He'll say it's blackmail. "Is it really?" I asked. My husband owns several rental properties and company shares that are protected by the prenup. I'm not contesting any of that. I heard papers rustling. The lake house is also protected by the prenup. That's true, but I want it anyway. It holds sentimental value for your husband. For me too, I claimed. Even though I'd only been there maybe 3 times during our relationship, Ben always found excuses why I wouldn't feel comfortable in that house. There was a pause. Then the lawyer said, "I'll present your demands to my client." "Please do," I said sweetly. 2 days later, Ben agreed without further comment. His lawyer contacted mine. I started working more seriously on Ben's construction project again, but held back a few key documents, which I only submitted once the apartment and the lake house had been legally transferred to me and my share of the savings was safely in my account. 3 weeks later, Ben had 3 things to celebrate. His project was back on track, the penalties were avoided, and the divorce was finalized. I cried my eyes out in my apartment, now fully mine, while Ben was probably visiting the lake house one last time with Noah. He had handed me a large bundle of 11 keys and had it notarized to confirm that these were all the keys belonging to the property. But he had lied to me repeatedly throughout our marriage. Who was to say he was telling the truth now? I wondered why the group had needed 11 keys. When I counted them, I came up with 7 people: Jewel, Rachel, Chris, Liam, Zach, Noah, and Ben himself. Then it hit me. The other 4 keys had been made for the partners of Jewel, Rachel, Chris, and Liam. Zach had always been proudly single. Once again, I broke down crying, tears that had only just dried, because I realized how calculated and perfidious the clique's behavior toward me had really been. I worked from home for 3 days because no one at the office needed to see my tear-streaked face. I couldn't take any time off to travel to Vermont just then, because part of the divorce agreement was that I had to remain available for Ben's project to the best of my ability until I had trained a successor who could take over the work to his satisfaction. My sister and her husband offered to go to Vermont for me, take pictures of the house, and change all the locks. All they asked for was reimbursement for the locks, gas, and a 5-day motel stay. "I'm not sleeping in a house where your ex cheated on you for years. Bad vibes," she said, and I tearfully agreed. I wired her the money, and she and my brother-in-law set off. Over the next few days, dozens of photos of the property and the house, inside and out, landed on my computer. At first, I ignored them, afraid of the emotions they might trigger. Then, curiosity got the better of me. The house was cozy, the furniture old and worn, which added to its charm. In the hallway, there was a mural. I recognized Jewel's style. A few years earlier, Ben and I had visited one of her exhibitions. One of her paintings hung in the guest room. Ben had left it behind, probably because he didn't consider it personal property, but rather part of the furnishings. I checked the inventory list. Yes, it was listed accordingly and therefore belonged to me. I stood there frozen, wondering whether I should destroy it. It was probably worth a few $1,000s. Jewel wasn't a well-known artist and worked part-time as a personal assistant because she couldn't live off her paintings. I took the painting off the wall and stored it in the closet. Back in my home office, I continued reviewing the photos. In the garden, the brick grill caught my eye, built, as far as I knew, by Chris, Liam, and Zach. Rose bushes lined the path from the fence to the house, planted by Rachel. The poor roses weren't to blame for the divorce, but I instantly hated them with all my heart. In one of the closets, carefully folded, lay a granny square blanket. Maybe it had been made by Zach, who liked crocheting and knitting. It took 6 weeks until I could officially hand off Ben's project, and he approved my replacement. During the meeting, we spoke only about the work and the transition. He seemed stressed and had small lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. A part of me worried about him and his health. Love doesn't vanish overnight, even when it's been betrayed. But I reminded myself of Ben's years of lies. That dulled my sympathy. I took 2 weeks of vacation and 2 weeks of working from home. I would have liked a full month off, but my employer refused. I drove to Vermont and stepped onto the property for the first time in years. The rose bushes were gone. I had allowed Rachel to dig them up and take them, on the condition that she fill in the holes, which she had done. She had even brought in sod and laid it over the filled areas. Rachel hadn't deserved that concession, but I had given it to her, because the beautiful roses didn't deserve to be blamed for her lies. In the meantime, Zach had emailed me and asked if I could send him the granny square blanket he had forgotten. Everything had happened so quickly, he wrote. I'll send it once I get a chance to go to the house, I told him at the time. That might take a few weeks. I'm really swamped at work. Inside the house, I walked through every bedroom and thought about which one I would choose for myself. The idea that Ben and Noah had shamelessly enjoyed their intimacy in these beds, without a single thought for me, tormented me. I finally chose the room where my sister had found the granny square blanket. I rejected the sheets and bedding. I had brought my own. The mattress was better than I expected, and I slept relatively well. The next day, I went to the local store, and the owner immediately asked me, "Are you the one who bought the lake house?" Bought? I was confused. "I'm the new owner," I hedged. "Welcome. What are you planning to do with the property?" I'm not exactly sure yet, but I'll definitely make a few changes, like having the grill torn down." The store owner clapped his hands with delight. "The local craftsman will be glad for any job." I grinned. "If the price is right, I'm a tough negotiator." The shopkeeper held out his hand, and I shook it. "Good to know," he said. "The previous owner and his friends did most of the work themselves, except for the electrical. The house is in good shape." "Good to know." He and his partner were a lovely couple. They gave my son a positive example that he doesn't have to hide who he is. My smile froze. Role models? My lying husband and his lover? The storekeeper's face tightened. "You're not anti-LGBTQ plus, are you?" "Not at all," I assured him quickly. Should I destroy this man's illusions about Ben? What would that mean for his son? I decided to stay silent. To stay on his good side, I pulled up a photo on my phone of me and my favorite cousin. "This is Paula, my cousin. She's married to a woman, and I was one of her bridesmaids." The shopkeeper relaxed again. "As for the grill, my son would be happy to give you a quote." "Perfect. Maybe he knows someone who'd be interested in the hot tub?" "Absolutely. He'll probably buy it himself." Back at the house, I made myself a simple meal. I didn't quite trust the stove yet. Then I got the granny square blanket, a small pair of scissors, and unpicked the thread that held the squares together. I carefully rolled up the yarn. Zach and the others shouldn't be able to say I destroyed the blanket. I simply broke it down into its individual parts. I packed everything neatly and sent it to Zach, who politely thanked me by email. He didn't mention my special treatment. Guilt? Relief that I hadn't destroyed the squares? 3 weeks later, the grill was gone. The hot tub now brought joy to the handyman Daniel and his partner Tom. Tom had thoroughly sandblasted the mural and painted the hallway a neutral color. All the beds were sold, except the one I slept on. The new couch was delivered, and Daniel hauled away the old one along with the matching chairs. The house no longer felt like Ben and Noah's love nest. It started to feel like my retreat. I didn't fully trust Daniel. Nothing personal, but he had made Ben his hero, and so I was afraid he might let Ben into the house if asked. That's why I gave the key to a property management service Ben had, hopefully, never worked with. The higher cost was worth it to me. Back in New York, I threw myself into my work and missed Ben less and less. A few weeks later, I heard from a mutual acquaintance that Noah had broken up with Ben, supposedly because Ben prioritized money and Noah was deeply hurt that he had signed over the lake house to me. Ben should have fought harder for it. He didn't, and I never told him I knew.